Welcome back to the brutal reality. If you're sitting there clutching a $5 Starbucks latte, wondering why your incompetent boss drives a Porsche while you're scraping pennies to pay off your credit card debt, this is for you. Today, we are talking about the real rules of the game of capitalism. We're going to dissect the 2016 Nobel Prize in Economics won by Oliver Hart and Bengt Holmstrom. Sounds dry, right? Contract theory. Don't click away just yet. This is the roadmap that explains why the world operates in such a twisted way, why Wall Street banks collapsed in 2008 but CEOs still got fat bonuses, why Elon Musk got a $56 billion pay package at Tesla, and why your insurance policy is 50 pages long with fine print that would make a microscope squint.
Rewind to 2008, the Great Recession. The world is on fire. Millions of Americans are losing their homes. Lehman Brothers collapses, dragging the entire global economy into the abyss. But do you remember what Richard Fuld, the CEO of Lehman Brothers, the guy they called the gorilla of Wall Street, was doing? In the years leading up to that crash, he pocketed nearly $500 million. The question every working stiff, from the welder in Detroit to the office clerk in New York, was screaming in rage: why? Why are we paying for failure? The mob thought it was corruption. The conspiracy theorists said it was the Illuminati. But Oliver Hart and Bengt Holmstrom would look you in the eye, smirk, and say, no, it's just a bad contract. Most people think economics is about buying and selling. Wrong. Modern economics is a giant web of contracts, not just the legal paper you sign when buying a house. It's every relationship between Apple shareholders and Tim Cook, between you and your insurer AIG, between the US government and defense contractors like Lockheed Martin. Contracts are the glue keeping society from dissolving into Mad Max chaos. But Hart and Holmstrom pointed out a painful truth nobody wants to admit: we cannot write a perfect contract. Why? Because humans aren't supercomputers. We can't predict the future. How do you know if there will be a global pandemic in 5 years? How do you know if AI will replace your staff next month?
Because of this imperfection, contracts always have loopholes, and it is in those loopholes that monsters like the Wells Fargo fake account scandal or the Enron collapse are born. Oliver Hart and Bengt Holmstrom didn't win the Nobel because they found a way to write perfect contracts. They won because they taught us how to survive in a world of flawed ones. They decoded the DNA of human cooperation. Look at the Wells Fargo disaster in 2016. Thousands of bankers secretly opened millions of fake accounts under customers' names to hit sales targets. Why did otherwise honest employees do something illegal? Were they evil? No, it was the employment contract and the incentive scheme that Wells Fargo leadership dropped on their heads. Bengt Holmstrom would tell you, if you pay too much for quantity KPIs, you will kill quality. That is a fundamental principle that the geniuses in Silicon Valley constantly forget. They design algorithms optimizing for attention, like Facebook or TikTok, rewarding engineers based on screen time, and then act surprised when society becomes polarized and fake news runs rampant. And Oliver Hart, he cares about power. When things go off the rails, and they definitely will, who has the authority to decide? Why do M&A deals often fail miserably? Why was the AOL-Time Warner merger the biggest joke in business history? Hart will tell you the reason: it's a war over residual control rights. We live in a world run by agreements, from booking an Uber to Elon Musk buying Twitter. If you don't understand the mechanics of these hidden contracts, you're just a sheep waiting to be sheared. I'm going to show you how Bengt Holmstrom exposed the stupidity of modern compensation systems and why paying teachers based on student test scores is the worst idea on earth. Why do smart people, Ivy League grads in $1,000 suits, constantly make stupid decisions that bring the world to its knees? The answer lies in two concepts Holmstrom and Hart put on the operating table: moral hazard and the multitasking principle. Imagine you're a mechanic. Your boss, let's call him capitalism, sets a rule: hey buddy, your base salary is $0, but I'll pay you a 10% commission on every part you replace for a customer. What do you think happens?
Here's a real example that shook America in the 90s: the Sears Auto Centers scandal. Sears, the retail giant of the time, applied a sales-based incentive for mechanics. The result? Thousands of cars came in just for an oil change, but left with a laundry list of diagnosed problems: flat tires, bad brakes, broken steering. The mechanics weren't born bad, they were just rats running exactly through the maze Sears designed. This is what Bengt Holmstrom calls the multitasking principle. Every job has things that are measurable, like sales, unit count, and things that are hard to measure, like quality, reputation, safety, company culture. Holmstrom warns, if you reward the measurable things too heavily, employees will sacrifice everything that is hard to measure. Look at Amazon today. Why do we hear horror stories about Amazon drivers having to pee in bottles? Why do warehouse workers collapse from exhaustion? Because Amazon's algorithm, the digital contract, is optimized to the extreme for a single metric: delivery speed. The contract between Jeff Bezos and the warehouse worker is crystal clear on productivity, packages scanned per hour, but it's incomplete regarding mental health or dignity. When the incentive engine pumps too much fuel into speed, the car goes fast, but the wheels fall off.
That's Holmstrom. What about Oliver Hart? He looks at the gaps. Hart asks, when the contract is silent, who holds the power? Look at the rocky relationship between Disney and Pixar before they merged. In the early 2000s, Pixar was the wizard creating hits like Toy Story and Finding Nemo. Disney was just a distributor and marketer. But they had a terrible contract. When making a sequel, who decided the script? Who decided the release date? The contract had massive holes. Steve Jobs, then Pixar owner, and Michael Eisner, Disney CEO, fought like cats and dogs over these residual control rights.
The result? Gridlock. Disney almost lost Pixar to a competitor. Oliver Hart pointed out the solution. When the cost of writing a perfect contract is too high and messy, the best move is integration. Let one party own it all. That's why Bob Iger, Eisner's successor, bought Pixar outright for $7.4 billion. You don't buy just for profit. You buy to eliminate the friction of bad contracts. When you own it, you don't need to argue over terms. You give an order and it gets done. But the classic, most painful example of contract theory failure is the 2008 financial crisis.
Look at the food chain. Mortgage brokers were paid commissions to sell loans. They didn't care if the borrower could pay it back. Investment banks packaged these trash loans into securities, CDOs, and sold them to pension funds. They hid the risk with complexity. Credit rating agencies were paid by the banks themselves to grade those securities. You pay me, I give you a AAA rating. The whole system collapsed for a simple reason. Everyone did exactly what their contract incentivized them to do. The broker got paid, the bank got fees, the agency got revenue, only the economy died. This isn't a random bug, it's a design flaw. We designed engines that encourage short-term greed and punish long-term caution.
Do you think we learned our lesson after 2008? Do you think governments fixed this? Don't be naive. The truth is, these design flaws aren't just in companies. They've spread to the national and geopolitical level. When you apply Hart and Holmstrom's theory to the world political chessboard, you see things that are far more terrifying. Why is China rising? Why did Brexit happen? Why are Europe's pension systems on the brink?
If you think bad contracts only cost you money on car repairs at Sears, look closer. The very principles of incentives and incomplete contracts from Hart and Holmstrom explain why our world is in such chaos. Let's start with the elephant in the room, China and the Evergrande debt bomb. Why did China build ghost cities where no one lives? Why did the Evergrande Group rack up $300 billion in debt, a number larger than Finland's GDP, and then collapse, dragging the real estate market down with it? Western pundits scream bubble, but through Holmstrom's lens, this is a textbook example of skewed incentives.
For 30 years, the unwritten contract was simple. Generate GDP growth and you get promoted. This is the macro version of the multitasking error. Beijing rewarded the easiest metric to measure, GDP. They ignored the harder to measure metrics, sustainable debt, the environment, and the actual utility of projects. The result? Local officials went crazy selling land, encouraging Evergrande to borrow recklessly to build condos, bridges, airports, whether anyone used them or not. As long as concrete was poured, GDP went up and the official got promoted before the debt bomb exploded. Evergrande wasn't an accident. It was the perfect product of a flawed reward system.
Now let's fly to the other side of the hemisphere, Europe and the Brexit shock. Why did Britain leave the EU? Ignore the flowery talk about nationalism. Look at Oliver Hart's theory of residual control rights. The European Union, EU, is essentially a giant contract between nations. But, as Hart said, no contract is perfect. When the 2015 migration crisis hit, or when the Greek debt crisis threatened the euro, the EU contract revealed fatal holes. Who has the power to decide Britain's borders? Brussels or London? Who decides monetary policy? The contract was unclear or too rigid.
When you feel you've lost control rights over vital issues the contract doesn't clearly cover, what do? You rip up the contract. Brexit was Britain's attempt to reclaim residual control rights, the accepted short-term economic damage in exchange for the right to decide. That is the price of an integration contract that was too ambitious but lacked flexible crisis mechanisms. And finally, look at the United States of America and its war machine.
Have you ever wondered why the F-35 Lightning II program by Lockheed Martin has cost taxpayers $1.7 trillion, the most expensive project in human history, yet is constantly delayed and plagued with technical glitches?
It's because the Pentagon frequently uses a type of contract called cost plus. The mechanism: the government pays the contractor all production costs plus a guaranteed profit. Sounds fair? Absolutely not. This is moral hazard at a nuclear level. If I pay you a fixed price to build a house, you will try to build it as fast and efficiently as possible to maximize profit. But if I pay you cost plus, whatever you spend, I reimburse plus a bonus, what is your incentive? You will spend as much as possible. You will work as slowly as possible. Lockheed Martin isn't stupid. They are just playing by the rules the US government set. They maximize shareholder value by making the project bloat indefinitely, and the American taxpayer is the cash cow being milked dry in this deal.
From Beijing to Brussels to Washington, we see the same script. Systems designed with bad incentives create catastrophic results. Politicians and CEOs often blame external circumstances or black swans, but the naked truth is they signed contracts that incentivized failure. So facing this grim picture, what should you, a small individual, do? Can you apply this Nobel thinking to stop getting fleeced in daily life? The answer is yes, and it's more pragmatic than you think.
Oliver Hart and Bengt Holmstrom didn't study economics so you could sound smart at a bar. They gave you a filter to see through the lies in everyday life. Here are 3 blood-written rules to stop being a sucker in a world of incomplete contracts.
The follow the incentives rule. Don't listen to the pitch, look at the paycheck. You walk into a real estate office. The agent smiles like a beauty queen, swearing to find you the best house at the cheapest price. Do you believe them? If you do, you're dead meat. Apply Holmstrom's mindset. How are they paid? Most agents get a commission on the transaction value, but more importantly, they need to close the deal fast. Sell a $500,000 house in 1 week, they get $10,000. Wait another month to sell it for $510,000. Better for you, they only get an extra $200. Will they spend a month of effort just to make $200? No chance. Their incentive is to push you to buy as fast as possible, not as best as possible. Before working with anyone, financial advisors, private doctors, mechanics, ask yourself, what does this guy's compensation structure encourage him to do? If the answer conflicts with your interests, run away or reset the rules.
2. The control rights rule. Always keep a spare key. You join a startup. The boss promises you 1% equity, ESOP, if the company succeeds. You sign the labor contract and grind day and night. 5 years later, the company sells for a fortune, but the boss uses a financial trick to dilute your shares down to 0.01%. You get nothing. Why? Because you forgot Oliver Hart's lesson. Contracts are always incomplete. When things aren't clearly defined in the contract, such as dilution scenarios or change of ownership, who has the power to decide? Usually the board, not you. When negotiating, whether it's a lease, a business partnership, or marriage prenup, don't just focus on the numbers, money. Negotiate for decision rights in worst-case scenarios. For example, if this project changes direction, who decides what I do next? If you sell the company, how are my interests protected? Don't let your fate rest in the gray areas of a contract written by someone else.
3. Don't enslave yourself to multitasking KPIs. This is the most personal lesson. Remember the Amazon and Wells Fargo examples? Humans tend to optimize what is measurable, salary, title, likes, and sacrifice what is hard to measure, health, family relationships, peace of mind. We often sign a bad contract with ourselves. I will grind 16 hours a day to buy a house by 30. This incentive scheme is powerful. It will make you rich, but it also carries moral hazard risks for your own body. You will cheat on sleep, embezzle from your health. By the time you get the house, your body has collapsed, just like Lehman Brothers in 2008. Redesign your life KPIs. Don't just reward yourself for money. Set binding clauses regarding rest and health. Don't let yourself become a Wells Fargo banker, rich but rotting from the inside out.
Economics isn't about dry charts. Economics is the study of human behavior under the pressure of incentives. The world is full of traps, asymmetric information, and people ready to exploit your trust. Hart and Holmstrom turned on the lights so we can see the tangled strings controlling the puppets. Don't just sit there complaining that society is unfair or capitalists are greedy. Understand how contracts work. See through the other party's motives, and most importantly, ensure that when the ink dries, you are the one holding the handle of the knife, not the blade. That is how you survive. That is how you win.